All right, so we want to sketch this sine function in this question. Now, the first thing you got to notice is if you have a k value and a d value, you got to make sure your k value is factored out. I'm going to start by factoring out this 2, x minus pi over 8 plus 1. So in this question, I have a negative sine function. My amplitude is 3. My k is 2, so I can find my period. My period is just 2 pi over k, which is 2 pi over 2. So my period is pi. My phase shift is pi over 8 to the right. And my equation of axis is y equals to 1. So with all this information, I can do a sketch of my function. So the first thing I always do with my sketch is I do my y-axis. And then the first thing I always draw is my equation of axis, which is y equals to 1 in this case. Make it nice and wide so we can draw multiple periods if we want. Now, the next thing I label is my maximum and my minimum. So if my amplitude is 3, my maximum is 1 plus 3, which is 4. And my minimum is 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. I can draw my x-axis next, which is over here. And now I can start labeling my key points. So my first key point is just going to be for a negative sine function. A negative sine function starts at the axis, but I have a phase shift of pi over 8 to the right. So instead of starting at the axis here, I will start at the axis here at pi over 8. The next thing I want to do is I want to figure out my last point of my first cycle. And in order to do that, I just have to add my period. So pi over 8 plus pi is just 9 pi over 8. The next thing I want to do for a sine wave is find my midpoint here. Again, that's on the axis. So if I find the midpoint of these two, you can either do it mentally or in the calculator. But I will do it in the calculator to be more exact. You just have to add pi over 8 plus 9 pi over 8 and then divide it by 2 to find your midpoint. Like I said, I'll do it in my calculator. And I get 5 pi over 8. So now I know this is a negative sine function. A negative sine function starts on my axis, goes to the minimum. So my minimum here is the midpoint of these two, and then it comes to the maximum over here. I just want to find these 2 points now, these two x values. So I'll do the midpoint of these two. And I can do that in my calculator or mentally. Pi over 8 plus 5 pi over 8 divided by 2 is 3 pi over 8. This one is just going to be 7 pi over 8. Once I have all my points labeled, I can draw a sinusoidal wave going through these points. And that is one cycle of my sinusoidal wave. If you want to create a second cycle, you could just take this point here. You can add the period again, which is pi. So this is going to become 17 pi over 8. You can find the midpoint of these two. So that's 13 pi over 8. And you can kind of follow the same exact algorithm to find the other two midpoints as well. And then you can draw a second cycle. This would be 11 pi over 8, and this would be 15 pi over 8. And that is how you draw a transformed sine graph.